And that comes from a lack of shared experiences, which I don't believe cheapens the film at all. Rather, it makes it.
I know this might sound crazy. I don't want to alarm you. Do you remember a TV show we used to watch together? It was called
The Pink Opaque?
I saw the TV Glow, the latest horror film from A24 directed by Jane Schoenbrun. This film features a cast including Justice Smith, Ian Foreman as a younger version of the Justice Smith character, Brigette Lundy, Helena Howard, Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit fame, and Danielle Deadwyler. I saw the TV Glow follows Owen, a shy teenager with strict parents who begins to bond with a girl at his school, Maddie, over their shared interest in a TV show called The Pink Opaque, which seems like a Buffy the Vampire type show. As Owen begins to find a sense of identity through the show and his friendship with Maddie, his reality begins to spiral when the Pink Opaque is suddenly canceled. And I had three questions going into I Saw the TV Glow. Did this movie live up to the horror aesthetic showcased within the A24 trailer? Would the 90s aesthetic and vibe of the film feel well utilized or haphazard? And three, why are the critics and audiences so divided on this film? Those are the three questions that I wanted to explore today in today's review. And before that, I wanted to kind of just start with an introduction of this film. Did this film live up to the horror aesthetic visualized within this trailer? The film is linear in some ways, it's abstract in any other ways. If you wanted to ignore the abstract aspects of this movie, you probably could and understand this movie. You must understand the modes of which this film is working in and operates, especially in different types of filmography, including queer filmography, noir filmography, horror filmography, and millennial filmmaker, all working in tangent. Anyone who's studied pop culture over the past 50 years will certainly pick up on some influences and imagery within this film. I think some of the more overt, obvious ones are David Lynch is clearly a huge influence, David Cronenberg, John Carpenter, Clive Barker of Hellraiser, Josh Whedon's work on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and even the 90s TV shows of Nick at Night, such as Stickly. They're all working within this film, but also growing up the internet, you can feel the age of social media and early 2000s internet culture working. I think specifically for any of us who read it, creepypasta stories made famous by social media, that is clearly within the text within this film. And all these influences influence Jane today. So in asking the question, I saw the TV Glow, is it scary? The answer is, how do you relate to the horror display? Thank you, Wendy. So when asking the question, is I saw the TV Glow scary? The answer is, how do you relate to said horror displayed on screen? If you're looking for jump scares, if you're looking for gnarly imagery, hi Tony, he's joining us again, body horror, bloods and guts, killing, then no, this movie isn't really scary. Isn't that true, Tony? If you're watching the film after spending most of your teenage years sharing slash reading creepypasta, then yes, this film has a certain ideas and imagery that are sure to elicit a certain reaction. And for those unfamiliar with that, it's going to leave some audiences puzzled. If you've struggled with identity, isolation, especially as it relates to gender and queerness, then this film probably feels uncomfortably real in other moments. And that is to say that at some points, I didn't find the film scary per se. Rather, I found it unsettling, but I couldn't identify what was unsettling about that. That is to say, I self-consciously understood and was aware why this would be scary to someone, but I couldn't articulate and identify why. And that comes, Tony, oops, I left this treat box open for him. And that comes from a lack of shared experiences, which I don't believe cheapens the film at all. Rather, it makes it... Tony... Well, after that disaster, thank you, Tony, for knocking down everything. That is not to say that I didn't find this film scary per se. Rather, I found it unsettling, but unidentifiable. Oh my goodness, you little guy. And that comes from a lack of shared experiences, which I don't believe cheapen the film at all. Rather, it makes it more artistically rewarding, even if the emotional resonance of this film is largely lost on me. He definitely found something. After watching this film, I spent a lot of time seeking to understand what this movie is about. While watching it, I picked up on some of the ideas that this movie is clearly overtly talking about. Identity and gender are two very obvious ones. It's made even more overtly obvious by the name of the show, the color palettes utilized within the film's lighting, a lot of blue and pink hues, as well as the aging and seeking nostalgic comfort in a way. Post listening and reading, I learned that Jane is a non binary filmmaker who uses the they slash them pronouns. From that point on, the transgender exploration of the film felt far more overt than I originally picked up on. It was actually something while watching the film for the first time, I just didn't pick up on. And then it immediately, once I learned more about it, it was so obvious. And I know some people picked up on it very clearly from the beginning of the film, but that does still beg the question, does this movie work for me? The answer is it's complicated. The performances are all strong, just as Smith in particular gives an emotionally distant yet devastating performance as Zoe, a teenager who feels isolated. The cinematography in this film is beautiful, just so many images that you could just stop and frame, largely due to the lighting of this film, which sets up a mood and a story cues especially well, especially in its neon aesthetic that this film uses very beautifully to wonderful effects. The writing of this film is razor sharp, especially in terms of how they handle Owen's interpersonal relationships, specifically his father. Want to just give a quick shout out to brilliant stroke of casting of Fred Durst, the lead singer of Limp Bizkit. He is such well utilized in this film that is set in the late 90s and early 2000s. To get Fred Durst in this role, what he represents to masculinity in the late 90s and early 2000s. It's a stroke of brilliant casting. Danielle Deadwyler plays the mom in this film. She's wonderful as always. You learn everything you need to know about this family's dynamic through minimal dialogue that speaks volumes about each individual's upbringing. I say this all, and yet I believe everyone is picking up maybe I have a bit of an apprehension on my part. So I asked myself, was my apprehension caused by my lack of personal relationship to the story unfolding, or was my mental barrier due to the way that this movie chooses to tell its story? And I think it's a bit of both, which brings me to my second question. The aesthetic and vibe of this movie. Did it work for me? Now knowing what I know about this movie, I want to readjust my initial question and ask, did the visual language that the filmmaker employed work in its favor? And this is probably where my thoughts become a little complicated, because the filmmaking flourishes in style distracted me at parts and pulled me out of the movie. I saw the TV glow utilizes a lot of characters looking straight at the camera and delivering lines of dialogue with deadpan delivery. As most well-known seen in certain filmmakers, I think Wes Anderson is probably the most famous examples of this that I can think of recently, where the character will just stare deadpan at a camera giving dialogue. And I think it's supposed to visualize the isolation that these characters feel, and I saw the TV glow. In this film, I felt like I was being told how to feel in these moments. And in a film where I thought the emotion worked best when it was restrained, when the film just tells me how it's feeling, I didn't respond to that as well. And those are flourishes that are throughout the movie. So I did feel myself being pulled out of the emotional resonance of this film at times. Which brings us to our third and final question. Why are critics and audiences so divided on I Saw the TV Glow? And the reason is because I think this film is impossible to manage audience expectations. Is this a horror film from A24? Not really, but also kind of. It's more of an experimental psychological queer coming of age film utilizing story techniques made popular by creepypasta, 90s television, and David Lynch, which, if you haven't guessed, really hard sell for a studio to explain. Its experimental nature will cause some audiences to love it. It will also cause some to outright reject the film, and others who will respect the craftsmanship but struggle with the end result. For me, I found I Saw the TV Glow ambitious in execution, yet lacked an emotional resonance that made the film feel frustrating in moments. That is not to downgrade anything that I Saw the TV Glow does, because I know for the same reason I had frustrations, that is going to make some people love this film. And the specificness of this film is going to allow people to really grapple with this film, really feel connected to this film, and feel like they are understanding a part of their life that no other filmmaker has lived or shared those feelings because no one else can put to word the aesthetic that maybe they grew up with, the feelings that they identified with. And that is all crucial to this. So to answer this third question that I had, which is why are critics and audiences so divided on I Saw the TV Glow? Because unlike a lot of movies that come out of this, I can easily say I Saw the TV Glow is art. And art is supposed to be hard to grapple with. And some people are going to love it. Some people are going to relate to it. Some people are going to bring different experiences to it. And some people are going to outright reject it. In a filmmaking standard where it has become so corporatized and so industrialized, when a film is so artistic and has so much integrity in its emotion and storytelling beats and its aesthetic, then it means that it is, by definition, anti-commercial, which when you're talking about an audience who wants to see a horror film, that is going to cause a disconnect. So I think people are getting this idea of this film being praised by critics and then having audiences react negatively to it as something more than it is. What it is speaking to is this film's lack of commerciality. What it isn't saying is this film is bad. In fact, I actually think it's the opposite. I think the fact that this film is so divisive in its artistic approach is a real exciting thing. And I think that is what brings this filmmaker, Jane Schoenbrun, to just such high effects in this movie, because you just see an artist really bearing it all for us in a time where so much it feels like the artist's vision is compromised. And it's so exciting to see someone achieve that. And I'm so excited that they did achieve it in this film, even if it doesn't all work for me all the time. But I don't want to take that away from anybody. I Saw the TV Glow was a really just unique experience that I'll always remember, and I certainly will continue thinking about, and I may revisit. And I also know people are going to love it. So when I give this film the review that I'm about to give it, or the star rating that I'm about to do it, that is not an plea to either see or don't go see the movie. That is me approaching art the way I did. And someone else, they're going to tell me this is a 5-star masterpiece, and I understand it. Someone else is going to tell me that this is a 1-star film that makes no sense, and I understand it, because to some it will make sense, to others it won't. For others, they're going to find the style distracting. For others, it's going to feel revolutionary. And that's the exciting part about I Saw the TV Glow. For me personally, again, I respected the ambition. I respected all that this film is trying in its execution, even if some of the emotional resonance did not pay off for me due to the filmmaking flourishes in this. I'm still able to comfortably say I Saw the TV Glow is a 3 out of 5-star movie. So thank you all for watching this video. And if you like this review, make sure to subscribe. I have reviews of Furiosa and Richard Linklater's Hitman coming soon. Thank you all for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.